Gordon, we're identical twins, and he's a high school teacher at a local high school on the north side of Edmonton. And this, I think, was about 2018, and it was my daughter's graduation. So obviously, I'm there dressed in my suit to celebrate the graduation for my daughter, and my brother's there as a student, or sorry, as a teacher, and he's a very outgoing guy. So a lot of people were looking to take pictures with him. So as I was walking through the convention center, a lot of people would come up to me and say, "Hey, Mr. G, I want to take a picture with you, as a memento." And I'd say, no, I'm not Mr. G, I'm his twin brother. And they didn't believe me. So guess what? I took pictures with a bunch of students that I have no idea who they are, or they have no idea that it's not their teacher. And in fact, I was egged on by some of the other teachers to go up to a group of other students and do the same thing. So it turned into a little bit of a joke. So it was quite funny how I'll be remembered in a lot of people's cameras, if you will, and that it's not Mr. G, it's his twin brother that took pictures with him. So that was a little bit of a fun time for sure.
Welcome. This is Uncommon Sense, a CPA podcast presented by the Heshe CPA Knowledge Center. The center is an initiative of the CPA Education Foundation, the charitable arm of the Chartered Professional Accountant profession in Alberta. For the record, this CPA podcast isn't about bean counting. Our episodes feature conversations with Alberta CPAs sharing their insights on a wide range of timely topics. Hello, I'm Gordon Turtle, your host for this episode, and our guest today is Chartered Professional Accountant Joe Gagliardi. Joe is a founding partner of Recruitment Partners, Inc., an executive search firm that Joe has helped lead since 2011. Originally based in Edmonton, Recruitment Partners now offers services in both Calgary and Edmonton with a focus on finance-related recruitment opportunities. In addition to leading a successful business, Joe is also an active volunteer in his community and within the CPA profession. Among his many volunteer roles, Joe was a longtime member of the board of the CPA Education Foundation and recently wrapped up a very successful term as foundation chair. As a longtime expert in the field of recruitment, Joe has an in-depth knowledge of effective recruitment and job search practices, as well as the current job market for professionals in Alberta. Today, Joe has joined us to talk about how young professionals and those new to the work world can land that dream job in today's job market. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you very much, Gordon. I appreciate the great introduction, and I'll try to live up to most of that.
Well, I don't think there'll be any problems there. Thanks, Joe. So to begin, please tell us a bit about your professional background and how being an accountant led to you creating a top-notch executive search firm. How did that happen?
So I got my CPA designation back in 1996, and I really liked I had a variety of different roles. I worked up, as you would say, the corporate ladder in a few organizations, and I always had a perspective of helping people, and I wanted to, midway through my career, if you will, I said, well, geez, is this time to do something different? And I really saw an opportunity to leverage my accounting acumen and my CPA designation, and said, well, if I went into recruiting, I can help people with their job search. I can give them some perspective because I've lived it. And also it's something that, a big part of me is getting out into the community, helping out. There's a part of me that is a big believer in we have to leave this world a better place than we found it. So recruitment was a natural fit for me. So in 2011 with my business partner, we started Recruitment Partners from my kitchen, and I'm happy to say we're, as you mentioned, in 2 cities and well over 40 people within our organization.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. It's amazing how versatile the CPA designation is and the kinds of careers people can have when they earn that designation. So what did your accounting skills and training bring to the role as co-founder of your firm? Do you think your CPA designation helps make Recruitment Partners unique or different from other job search agencies?
Oh, absolutely. And again, the fundamentals of our organization is helping professional accountants and more junior accountants working into the designation, getting jobs. We have 8 designated accountants on our staff. A couple of them are in our administration side, but there's 6 of us on the frontline recruiting side. So we've perpetuated and continued that the mindset of getting designated accountants, helping other designated accountants. Very much so. The CPA designation, I always think of the CPA designation as the nervous system of an organization, whether it be public practice or in industry, and everything flows through the nervous system, which is the accounting department, if you will. So that's really helped me to kind of understand all aspects, because accounting touches insurance and marketing and in some way, shape, or form, all aspects, operations, of course. So it really has helped me. It's helped me with developing some key metrics that we run our business by, and also the professionalism of what the public expects out of a professional accountant. That accrues to our organization, as we have a moral obligation and a legal obligation, of course, to be steadfast and not an organization that does things that are a little bit in the gray. We try to stay right, play within the lines as best we can.
Okay, so I didn't know that. So you have a lot of CPAs working as recruiters. Is that the correct term, recruiters?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
So that definitely would set you apart, I suspect, from most executive search firms. Do you have trouble recruiting CPAs to that kind of role?
Yes and no. So there is a lot of professional accountants that are looking to do something different other than accounting, if you will. I think the key that we try to look for is, are you a people person? Are you a person that wants to, quite frankly, put yourself out there, be vulnerable? Because in our business, we do come up against a lot of people that, for whatever reason, just see us as a necessary evil. But what we try to do is build that connection with candidates and clients to be more than just that. And I call it developing a credible human link with your clients and candidates, and making that their needs are what you want to deliver on. And that is key, that if you develop that personal touch, that people want to use your service because hopefully you're good, but because they like you. So imagine that. Those are 2 combinations that sometimes we sell short in industry.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So as I said earlier, I wanted to get you in the studio here today to get your thoughts and perspectives on how a person, mainly a young person, can land that so-called dream job today in what is a very competitive and challenging job market. When you first graduate from university, it can be very daunting and intimidating to try and get your career started. So what advice and counsel would you give to a young professional or a new grad looking to make their mark on the business world?
Well, one of the main things is, as there's an old saying, is the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The next best time is to plant a tree today. So in your university days, get involved in different clubs, get involved in extracurricular activities that has a professional slant to it. That's so key. And then, when you graduate, you're going to have connections, and connections through having a properly vetted LinkedIn profile. And what I mean there is, early in your career, your LinkedIn profile should read much like your resume, where what do you do outside of just accounting, and showing that broad breadth of experiences or activities that you have. Also, just going to networking events. And one of the things that people find, they get frustrated early, and it's really like a drop in the sink. After a while, it does fill up, so you have to be patient with that. The other aspect that young people, I think, don't spend enough attention to is how to interview properly. And I can get into that a little bit more, but practicing, getting in front of a mirror and talking, and whether it's having one of a friend or a parent or whomever it may be, a mentor, interview you, and let them come up with the questions that you don't know, so that it's a little bit impromptu and you have to think on your feet. And then finally, having a positive, open mindset. It's so key that that you have what is the world challenge going to be, and I'm ready to take it on, versus, oh, the world's a tough place and it's not fair. And I think especially young people can get really frustrated. And you always hear these stories, you see it online, and that everybody's living the best life, and how come my life is ordinary or not as good? And quite frankly, who cares? That's not where you need to spend your time. And the other side of it is, they're probably not as good as everybody thinks. We all try to put on these put on airs of being more successful than we are, and you sometimes just staying steady and being positive is the key. And a lot of, I find, students and young individuals that are struggling to find a job are not staying positive, and they're getting down, and then they have a defeatist attitude. And so those are the three main keys that I think a younger individual studying to be a designated accountant or is a designated accountant needs to consider.
Let's drill down a bit more into that. You mentioned, how to conduct yourself during an interview. Any more tips, maybe do's or don'ts for having a successful interview these days?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't even imagine how many people I've interviewed over the years, but it is a lot. One of the things is don't ramble on. So many times people get off on a topic, and I've had to say, well, sorry, can you still answer my question? And they look at you a little bit dazed, like, oh, I thought I did. Well, no, you didn't. You just went on to your own agenda. So rambling on is a thing that a lot of they try to emulate what they've seen online and say, oh, he's going to want this, this, and this. But if that's not the question, don't answer it. The other side is, sometimes people are quite the opposite. They're too concise. They don't go into enough detail. And that's where you can get into a little bit of trouble also, where you're leaving the interviewer hanging for more information, and it's almost assumed that they get it, but they have to hear it. Sometimes we're very excited when we're in an interview and we interrupt. And there's always time for you to ask questions, or there's always time going to be set aside. And you can even say to the interviewer, well, I have an opportunity to ask some questions at the end of the interview. And then it's okay to say, you know what? I had 5 questions. You answered them all. Thank you very much. And then continue on. So being very respectful of their process. The other side, or another aspect that has to be considered, and I get this quite a bit, is people not lying but not being genuine or as honest as they could be. They'll say something along the lines of, I helped with an integration of a software project, for example. Okay, well, what did you really do? Were you playing a support role? And that's okay, especially if it's early in your career. Nobody's expecting you to hit the ball out of the ballpark right away. And especially if you're looking for a set salary, you don't want to give the interview a sense that, oh my gosh, this person's way too senior for this role, they'll get bored. And we see that a lot, and believe me, there's lots to learn. And again, as I mentioned earlier, practicing in front of a mirror is so key to have that repetition down, and the cadence, and getting somebody to interview and throwing you a curveball is also very good. But people can smell a canned response a mile away. So be as genuine as possible. And if you feel like sharing some personal information, do so, because that puts people at ease. If, as an example, hey, I want to, I really like government type role. I see myself retiring in this government type role because of, the job security, and I want to respect that, and that's something good. So we want to show that credible human link, and showing, if you will, your cards, so that you make the interviewer feel comfortable also.
So do you think there's any room for some exaggeration when you're being interviewed, or is any exaggeration a bad thing?
So again, being as straightforward and honest as possible. I think that you can extol upon things from the exaggeration perspective is no, but hey, this is what I took up in school. I've done some reading on this. There's some perspectives that I have. That's the key that you want to show. And when I interview, especially newer CPAs or soon-to-be CPAs, I'm looking for that well-roundedness. And the market is not just looking for somebody for just numbers. They're looking with somebody that has that personality. And I'll say it like this. Are you a storyteller so you can integrate your skills and your accounting acumen into, for example, an operational role and speak to a frontline manager that potentially doesn't have the accounting understanding that you have. So you have to communicate in very simple language, and that's key. So exaggeration in general is not advised, but you can extol upon different aspects when given that opportunity.
Do you think people should conduct themselves differently in an interview, like if they're just recently graduated from university compared to someone who's been in the workforce for 10 years?
100% yes. And really early in your career, what interviewers are looking for is, do you have the technical skill to do the job? That's number one. Number two is, are you a culture fit for them? Will you drink the Kool-Aid of their company values and live them, and how to demonstrate that? And then finally, it's the return on investment, the ROI. Are they going to pay you less money than the value you give back? And that is so key. And if you keep that in mind, is you make the interview about them and their needs, then that will make them want to come back to you, and you'll get what you want. And it's really that simple early on in your career. And I'm going to quote a fellow, and it's a book that I've read several times, is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And he was a hostage negotiator. And he has a bunch of little short videos on YouTube, and I encourage people to go look at it. And one of the interview questions that he says you must ask, and I agree with him 100%, is, what do I need to do to be part of the strategic direction and projects that I can do that help this organization long term? Employers will jump across the table to hire you at that point because you're making it about them. And that gives you the leverage back. And to my earlier point is, your time will come later on in your career when you can show what you've done on your resume and networked out into the industry. People will know what you can do. And that's where you can make it more about you and meeting some of your goals. But early on, make it about your employer and how you can help them. We don't have any Gen X's anymore in industry, if you will, or they're not making any more Gen X. And I'm not here to moralize with millennials are better or worse or different. But if you can emulate a lot of what your interviewer is, especially if they're a little bit more senior in their career, and understand what makes them tick, you will be more relatable. And that's the key. Is a lot of interviewers feel that especially the younger generation is not as relatable as they used to be or what they're used to. So if you can bridge that, that's key.
Well, that's worth repeating. That one question you should ask as a young person looking for that great job is to ask, what can I do to help your company succeed? That's pretty awesome. I wish I'd known that a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. It just shows a lot of foresight. It shows a lot of, wow, this person is here to help us. And in the beginning, a lot of people say, what does this position pay? If they ask you, what are you looking to make? Well, Mr. Interviewer, I know that the range is from here to here from the research I've done. I'm sure you pay very equitably. I want to talk about how I can help your organization, and I'm sure I'll earn that money long term, or I'll get my appropriate raises or bonuses as the organization sees fit, as long as I contribute to the organization. As I mentioned earlier, interviewers are going to jump across the table to hire you because you are setting yourself apart.
Well, thanks for that, Joe. And I'm wondering, some people are super skilled, super talented, but they might be quite introverted or even shy and have trouble really showing their best selves during an interview. So, do you have any tips for people who are maybe introverted like that, or they're nervous, or even like doubting their self-worth when they head into an interview?
Absolutely. And the best thing I would suggest is get in front of it in that, if I can say it like this, occupy the cartoon bubble before they occupy it for you. So what does that mean? Hey, Mr. Interviewer, I'm a relatively shy guy. I know that I have the aptitude and skills to do this job. So you get in front of it, and all of a sudden, you set the expectation for the interviewer low, that their expectations will be low, and you will also inadvertently calm yourself because you got it out there. Hey, I'm a shy guy, or I'm not a big talker. So you got that out of the way. You will relax the interviewer because they're sometimes very nervous interviewing you, or they're tired and they want to see something different. You're gonna automatically calm yourself down, and then you can have a more thoughtful and meaningful conversation. And it does switch the attitude of that adversarial sitting across the table type of situation that we all get nervous about. It becomes more, quite frankly, conversational. And one of the things that I would always do when I was interviewing individuals is I would, add some levity, crack a joke, make it more easy, make them relax. And quite frankly, I would call them out when I felt, well, geez, that sounds like a canned answer. That doesn't sound like something that I can kind of understand who you really are. No, and I've actually said this. I go, now can you give me a real answer? And they laugh. And then that sets the tone for a little bit more of a relaxed interaction. And I've had internal staff say to me, I remember when you interviewed me and you called me out and I couldn't believe you did that. But I go, yeah, but look, you're here right now because I got the real answers. So, and then in a way we share a laugh about that. So being introverted is okay. And maybe you need to interview for jobs that there's a little bit less of that interaction with people, and that's fine. If you go to work in a public practice firm, they need experts in certain areas, whether it be tax or certain types of credits or cross-border type of situations. So you can be that resident expert in that area if you prefer to have less interaction, and then leave the business development, if you will, in a public practice firm to the more extroverted individuals, and they go get the business and you deliver. So there's a place for everybody.
So employers or interviewers might be happy to see people who are a little introverted or a little shy. Maybe they think they might fit some of those roles more appropriately. Is that safe to say?
Absolutely. This is something that we come across all the time. One of the things that we say is there's a lid for every pot, and that is so true. For example, if we have somebody that's a little bit more casual, is not used to getting dressed up, we don't want to put them in a white-collar organization. We want to put them in a more rural organization, or an oil and gas operational type role. So there's a place for everybody, and all types of personalities and all types of skill sets for sure.
You've talked about this a bit already, but what do you think in general employers are looking for these days in candidates? Is it all about the GPA and the technical skills and the experience? Or is there more to it? Are there other characteristics that are as important as all that, or even more important?
Yes. So there's some traditions still out there with, as an example, with we'll call them the big four CPA firms. They are truly looking for that GPA as kind of a vetting out criteria, culling from all the applicants, if you will. But then when you get into the interviewing side of things, there's a lot of other factors that come into play. Is their personality, are they doing, giving time to charity? If you can give some time to charity early in your career, wow, does that ever resonate, especially in today's economy? But there's, just because the Big Four has that bit of that criteria doesn't mean that there's not a lot of other places to work, especially in public practice. And sometimes a smaller firm will suit you better because you get involved with a variety of different aspects of the, for example, the audit or the other work that's being done in these public practice firms or in industry. So GPA is very, very important early, or not very important. I'm just going to put one very there, and it's less important as you go on. Is what have you done with it? It's just like getting your master's from a very prestigious school, let's say like Harvard, or getting your master's from a little bit lesser known university or college. 10 years down the road, it doesn't matter. It's what have you done with that education? And a lot of people throw their credentials down and say, "Oh, I'm a grad from this university or this one," and think that that's going to carry weight. It does in the beginning, but long term, it dissipates, and what you've done with it is more important.
Interesting. So, Joe, what would you say are the biggest mistakes that people make when they're searching for a job, either very early in the search or in preparing for an interview or after the interview? What kind of mistakes are the most common?
Probably if you're early in your career, you want to try to be as specific as possible to what you think you're looking for, and then you move out from there. So what do I mean? Hey, I'm going to apply to these several CPA firms, big and small, and then hopefully you're getting interviews, and you're going to compare what am I going to be doing there in comparison to what do I like. So that's one of the first steps. So not being strategic with your search. In other words, it's like a funnel, and you have everybody is your oyster, if you will, or you'll consider anything, and then start narrowing it down to what do I really want. Also, interviewing people potentially a few years older than you that have gone through this, and of course you want to cobble it all together and build your own perspective of what's right for you. But I remember early on I did that, and before I decided to go into the accounting field from an educational perspective, I probably interviewed a dozen people and asked them, why do you like it? Why don't you like it? What do you think of this? Is there a future? One of the things that a lot of people feel they're not going into accounting as much as they used to because they thought that AI was going to make their job obsolete. We're finding there is an incredible shortage of well-qualified accountants. So this is my ad campaign right now to say, please consider accounting and finance because there is a lot of great opportunities going forward for many, many foreseeable years. And so that's key. The other thing that the mistakes that they make is that they're too casual about their job search. This is your career. Treat it as such. And sometimes I think we take our foot off the gas or leave no stone unturned. And I'll share a quick story for you. Now, many more people are more casual, but I was interviewing for a job that I was leaving another job, and I had to go to this more corporate setting, if you will. And I was very casual, and I said to the interviewer, "Hey, you know what? I don't want to tip off my employer, so I'm not going to wear a suit. Is it okay if I just wear, a golf shirt and some cotton khakis or whatever the case was?" And he says, I could tell he was, okay, yeah, no, I gotcha. And I said, I saw his reaction. I says, no, I'm not going to leave that to chance. I changed in my car and, threw on a tie and I remember it was a hot day. I was sweating and I said, I hope this is worth it. And when I walked in, his eyes lit up and said, "Oh, you're wearing a suit." I go, "Yeah, you know what? Yeah, just something I threw on. I didn't make a big deal of it, but I knew I had impressed them because the expectation was lower and I exceeded it. And that is the key is to always try to exceed expectations. And, in my day when I used to search for jobs, I went to the library to do research on the company because there was no internet.
Where did you go?
The library. And I looked up a company's annual report and I said, "Hey, I noticed that you did this acquisition and you did that." And they go, and the fellow interviewing me, he was a CPA, and he said to me, okay, I got it. You did your research. And we shared a laugh about that. So that was kind of cool. So taking your job search very seriously and not leaving stones unturned, and just that incremental, try to think of little things that could go wrong and make those situations adjust away from those bad situations for sure.
Joe, you anticipated my next question, which was, in this day of casual office wear and dressing down and stuff, is how you dress for an interview still important?
Yes, it is. if your look is to have that bit of a scruffy beard for the guys and just a little bit more casual, let's say for the gals, you can still do that. I always like to think is I dress up one level more than what probably the position would require. That's kind of a good rule of thumb that I go by. I notice those things, like, and it's simple things like, unscuffed shoes to clean fingernails. I've seen it all, and I've seen very, very senior people come in to interview and they have coffee stains on their golf shirt, and I shake my head, and it's an indication of, hey, you're not that well kept or put together on that side of the fence. What else is being left to chance that we might uncover in a job? So again, a good rule of thumb is to dress one level higher than you think that environment allows. The key once in a while is don't overdress. For example, if you go work in a feedlot, if you will, and there's a bunch of cowboy boots and Wranglers and all that, don't want to go in a suit, because then you're just going to look so awkward and out of place. So, but one level higher than what the normal wear would be, it would be key.
Good to know. I want to ask, whether the recent pandemic has had any long-term impact on the way your firm, Recruitment Partners, works, and more in general, did the pandemic affect the whole job search process as a whole?
Absolutely, it did. I could spend a long time on this, but I won't, because I know what time is of the essence. So what happened in the pandemic is we all had to go home and work from home. And I was one of the skeptics. Oh, we can't do it. Can't do this, can't do that. And what happened? You can work from home. And our productivity early in the pandemic was very, very good. And the reason why it was good is because potentially there was 1 or 2 or 3 rounds of people that got laid off, and you're one of the lucky ones. So guess what? Our minds were set that I have to be very productive and prove I can work from home, so that I'm not one of those next people to be laid off if something happens. And as you can appreciate, early in the pandemic, we didn't have a line of sight to the end of it, and so there was a very good productivity. Now in 2024, I'm going to suggest that our productivity from working home is low because of complacency, and people expect it now. And I hear young people saying, well, what's your work from home policy? And I just shake my head. And the reason why I shake my head is because early in your career, you need to set yourself apart. You need to be in the office or the work environment, whatever it may be, to show yourself off against others. And the nuances of the interpersonal skills that you develop in an office are just stunted if you're working from home. Now, again, with anything, there's within reason. As you get more mature in your career, working from home is a very good way to balance a very hectic life, especially for those that have children and there's drop off and pick up and the whole 9 yards. So absolutely, our work from home policy is can be integrated within an organization. But early on, if they say, hey, we have a work from home policy, I would say, hey, if it's 2 days from home, I'd say, hey, maybe I'll take a day from home once in a while, but I like to be in the office to make sure that I'm getting an understanding of what is happening in the organization and how can I help. And, to my earlier point, how can I be an integral part of strategic planning for this organization to make it successful? And being in the office is very key. So there's a place for both. So that's changed for us. That's a question that now we have to ask. And some really, really great jobs go unfilled because individuals don't want to come into the office. They just want to work from home. So, but it's opened up a lot of other opportunities the other way where, hey, we can now find somebody in Calgary to work on it in Edmonton and vice versa. So, there's some balance there for sure. One of the other things that we used to interview everybody face-to-face. And now we have to be understanding when it's a Zoom or Teams type meeting. Again, meeting face-to-face, you're building that, I'll call it that credible human link with individuals versus something is lost over Zoom or Teams or whatever it may be. So that's definitely changed our business quite a bit. So we've had to adapt to that.
Are you finding that because so many organizations offer work from home options that you get more applicants for jobs in Alberta from other parts of Canada or maybe even other parts of the world? And conversely, are Albertans applying for jobs elsewhere because they can work from home?
Yeah, absolutely. And I touched upon it, but good point is that it's opened up the market quite a bit more for people to be, residing in Edmonton or Calgary and, working in Toronto, if you will. We see more of that on a project basis, if you will, where being right there isn't as important, or what'll happen sometimes is they just have to travel to that location, quarterly, if you will. But it's definitely opened up more opportunities for individuals. And, again, it works really well for those individuals that have a big ask outside of work, i.e. from home with kids or, driving across the city. There's, working from home is definitely a good thing. But overall, as the market shifts to more of a employer-centric perspective, working from home, I'd say over the last 2 years, we saw a lot of 3 from home and 2 and 3 from the office. Now it's more, let's say 2 from home and 3 from the office. And a lot of organizations are 4 and 1. And then there's even more that are 5 and 0. Like, you're in the office, too bad. And, they're parting with some really good people, unfortunately. But, you have to try to find that balance for sure.
One final question for you, Joe, as we wrap up, and it's a bit of a fun one. If you hadn't become a CPA and started your own business, what do you think your career path would have looked like? What was the road not taken for Joe Gagliardi?
Wow. It's a very cerebral question. I love golf more than golf loves me. So I have a 12 handicap, which is very pedestrian, especially at some of the club I play. It's a lot of really, really good players. So I was never going to make a career as a golf professional, but I would love, walk in. What do they say? Golf is a nice walk through a park ruined, and that's for sure for me. I love the game more than it loves me. So I'm going to say golf professional. That's my final answer.
I can see that. I can see that working out for you. So, thanks, Joe. Thanks for being here today. It's been great hearing your perspectives on what's happening with the job market and how people can prepare for new careers. So, thank you so much. We're really fortunate to have had this opportunity to learn from an expert. Thanks again for being here, and all the best.
My pleasure. Thank you, Gordon.
The Uncommon Sense podcast is presented by the CPA Education Foundation and funded by the Heshe CPA Knowledge Center. The Knowledge Center was created through a generous donation to the CPA Education Foundation by the late Brian Heshe. Brian was a distinguished Albertan, business leader, CPA, educator, and community builder. His generosity and commitment to education underpinned his good works across Alberta throughout his lifetime. The opinions expressed on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the CPA Education Foundation. We would like to acknowledge that the CPA Education Foundation offices are situated on the traditional Treaty 6 and Treaty 7 territories and Métis Nation homeland. The Foundation acknowledges that we reside on traditional and ancestral territories of many Indigenous, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Their histories and culture influence our community to this day. The CPA Education Foundation is committed to helping build a province where Indigenous people and their voices and experiences are heard, valued, respected, and celebrated. Technical and recording services for this podcast provided by Wolf Willow Studios in Edmonton. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about us. If you have any comments on the podcast, write to us at cpaef@cpaalberta.ca. To learn more about the CPA Education Foundation and the Heshe CPA Knowledge Center, visit cpaalberta.ca/foundation. Thanks for listening.